Good day, students. Today's lesson is based on a business studies lesson for a grade 10 class. The main purpose of the demonstration lesson is to show you how to present the lesson that you have planned. Whilst teaching, you may deviate a little from the planned lesson, and this is because of the circumstances in the classroom. There are many things that may affect your lesson. Maybe the size of the classroom, maybe the students or the learners themselves, right? And the location, your resources. These are the things that would impact on your lesson. So today I am going to do the business studies lesson in a virtual classroom. So you might not hear the responses from the learners. So let us begin with today's lesson. I'm going to show you a short video, and I want you to listen to the video very carefully because I'm going to be asking you questions after I stop the video. It's important that you listen carefully to it.
Spaza shops are one of the backbones of the township economy. It provides residents with essential groceries they'd often have to travel far to buy. But if Shoprite opens more smaller stores in townships, Spazas could feel the pressure. Lungisile Dlaza inherited this Spaza shop from his father, who opened it in 1995. He's worried about what will happen to his business if Shoprite opens nearby. Dlaza believes the supermarket giant should find a way to collaborate with Spaza shops.
If it will operate as a Spaza shop, then it will be a very, very, very big downfall. My suggestion would, if these people they come, maybe like around Lagim, why don't they come empower me now with, okay, we are looking at this place, so let's try to make a package for when I would, okay, let's franchise you so that we can share the cake. You know, franchising is like a partnership on it, yes. So already they are big, they are in number one supermarket in Africa. Still now, from Lepezulu, they go to the lowest Spaza shop, no.
Dlaza says locally owned Spazas are already struggling against foreign-owned shops.
Because we don't know which some is friendly competition, but it only be better when it comes to mabatengisa lezinto lezi is not good for the community, like your expired goods, like your imitation stuff. When it was local Spaza shops, bengekho yonke lento, bengekho this thing, then they will say no, you are xenophobic and stuff. But these people, they didn't come for a competition, they didn't come for no, we want to help the community. They just came for taking the money away from South Africans.
Shoprite says its small format stores will offer a limited range of basic foods at low prices to lower income consumers. Diderot Slepe, Johannesburg.
Okay, so I'm sure many of you are familiar with these little shops like the one that you have seen in the video. And these shops we refer to as Spaza shops. Spaza shops normally carry goods which are used every day in the household, like milk, bread, sugar, flour, etc. Now, Mr. Dlaza is the owner of this Spaza shop. Okay, now tell me some of the Spaza shops in your area. Yes, Richard? Good. Can you tell me of any other businesses where you have a single owner? Yes, the hairdresser. Very good. Now, in the video you've watched very carefully, who is threatening Mr. Dlaza? Yes, Sipho? Yes, ShopRite Checkers. Now, let's look at these two businesses, Mr. Shilaza's Spaza Shop and ShopRite Checkers. What can you tell me about these two businesses? Yes, Zanele? Good. Right, so one is a very small business, whereas ShopRite Checkers is a large business. Yes, anything else that you can tell me? Yes, Sipo, again? Yes, in ShopRite Checkers, they sell a variety of goods, whereas in Mr. Shilaza's Spaza shops, there are few goods that he sells which are required by the households. Now, another name for these Spaza shops are convenience stores. The reason that we call them convenience stores is because they are easily reachable. People can walk to these stores. And they sell the essential goods. Right? So you can see that there is a difference between Mr. Shilaza's Spaza shop and ShopRite Checkers. Now, how is ShopRite Checkers threatening Mr. Shilaza? Yes, Zanele? Yes, ShopRite Checkers is threatening Mr. Shilaza's Spaza shop by wanting to come into the area. So if they come into the area, obviously they're going to be taking some of his business away. So what is Mr. Shilaza suggesting to ShopRite Checkers? Yes, Wellington? Exactly. He is suggesting that they form a partnership with ShopRite Checkers so that they can exist together in the area. Right, so we have discovered now in this short video that there are different types of businesses in our country, and there are different owners of these businesses. Right, so I'm just going to show you a few more of these businesses, which are just like Mr. Shilaza's. Right, if you can't see the chart carefully, I will read it. The first one is Amanzi Plumbing. Right, Amanzi Plumbing is owned by Mr. Sheldon Warner. Right, he owns Amanzi Plumbing. The next one is MCD Dance Studio, right, which is owned by Maureen. The next one is the Laundry Basket, and the next one is the Bluff Pawn Shop, and the next one is Bisesa Glass and Aluminium. These are a collection of businesses where we have, just like Mr. Shilaza, one owner. We also have another type of business where there is more than one owner. The first one is called Two Brothers Electrical. The next one is Grosvenor Health, which is owned by two doctors. The next one is a hardware store owned by father and son, the Reed Hardware Store. And the next one is a bakery. It's called Good Times Bakery, owned by a husband and wife. Right, just like we saw between Mr. Shilaza's Spaza Shop and ShopRite Checkers, there's a difference between the ownership of these businesses. And today we are going to look at the different types of business ownership. Now, there are many types of ownership, but today we are just going to focus on two types of ownership. And they are what we call sole proprietor. Proprietor means owner. The simple word for proprietor is owner. And the next type of business that we are going to look at is called partnership. So we have looked at these various types of businesses where we have one owner, sole proprietor, and where we have two or more owners, which we call partnership. Now, we're going to look in more detail at the businesses where we have one owner. And the correct terminology in business studies is sole proprietorship. Now, if you look at the slide, we have a sole proprietor here, he's a tailor, right, as you can see from the things in the background. And the characteristics of a sole proprietorship are a single owner. That means one owner. Nobody else is in that business, just this one person. There is no sharing of profit and loss in the sole proprietorship type of business. That means whatever money he makes is for himself. He doesn't share it with any other person because he is the sole owner of the business. And whatever money he's put into the business is his own. That is why we say it is one man's capital. Now, capital doesn't only refer to the money, it also refers to the premises that he uses, the machinery, the equipment that he buys for his business. Like in this case, he would be buying material, he would be buying machines, he would be buying cotton thread, and so on. So all this forms part of the capital. So the sole owner buys all these things on his own, doesn't borrow money from his family and things like that. Unlimited liability is another characteristic of sole proprietorship. Unlimited liability means that as a single owner, he is liable for all the expenses in the business. He is liable for any loss. If he owes money to somebody, he has to pay that money. So there's unlimited liability. The person himself has to pay back the money if he owes somebody the money. Less legal formalities. There is no need for registration of the business. There is no need to appoint an accountant and things like that in a sole proprietorship. It's one-man control. He manages it. When we talk about one-man control, he decides what time to open his business, what time to close his business, when to take a lunch break, when to take holidays. So he manages his business. He also decides if he can employ people in his business. So you must remember this. If you take Mr. Schlaza's spaza shop again, if you find there are 2 or 3 people working in his business, it doesn't mean that they are partners in the business. They are employees of Mr. Schlaza. So a sole proprietorship can employ people, but they are not partners in the business. So those are the characteristics of the sole proprietorship. Now, what do we mean about a partnership business? Now, in a partnership, we have 2 or more people. Now, we can have more than 2 people in a partnership. It goes up to 20 people. You can have 20 people to form a partnership. So what happens? People come together, they may invest in the business, and then start the business. So if it is a partnership, it's like a marriage, a husband and wife. They share things together. So a partnership is similar to a marriage, where people come together to start a business. So they may put money together. They may put the same amount of money. Let's say if 2 of your friends are going to be working together. So one friend puts 1,000 rand and the other friend puts 1,000 rand. So you have equal shares. But let's say one of your friends is too poor and he cannot afford the 1,000 rands. He may put 500 rands. So we call that unequal shares. So you have in a partnership 2 or more people coming together. Up to 20 people can come together in the partnership. And obviously, in a partnership, if people put money together, what do you think happens to the profits? Yes, Ntombi? Yes, they would share the profits. In a similar way, they would also share any loss that the business has, right? As we saw in a sole proprietorship, the total liability is on the owner. But here in a partnership, the liability is also shared. So if the business owes money to many people, all the partners would share in paying those people. So when a partnership is formed, there is an agreement between or among the partners. It's called a partnership agreement. So let's go back to Mr. Shilaza's spaza shop. Who decides when he should open the shop, when he should close the shop, what stock he should buy, and what price he should sell those stock at? Yes, Richard again? Yes, Mr. Shilaza himself decides it. But do you think the same thing happens in a partnership? Yes, in a partnership, all the partners will have to take a decision. Okay, so now that you have an idea of the two different types of business, ownership, sole proprietor, and partnership, and you know the basic difference. Now, one other thing that I omitted, in a partnership as well, there is not much legal documents to fill. You can get people together and start a business purely on a partnership agreement. Okay, so just to reinforce these ideas about the characteristics of these two types of ownership and the differences between these two types of ownership, I'm now going to show you two videos. Okay, so the first video is on sole proprietorship.
What's the best legal structure for your business? This is one of those questions where the answer is, it depends. This video will help you identify whether or not it makes sense to do business as a sole proprietor. As always, it's smart to consult a lawyer who specializes in business entity formation if you have questions or need further guidance. Let's get the most obvious question out of the way. What is sole proprietorship? There are several different business structures or entities that you can choose from for a business. Sole proprietorship is one of them. Other common business structures include partnerships, limited partnerships, C corporations, S corporations, and LLCs, and there are others that vary from state to state. If you haven't paid a fee, filled out a bunch of paperwork, and filed it with a state for one of the other entity types, you are doing business as a sole proprietor. What this means is that you and your business are the same legal entity, and you're probably filing all income and expenses related to the business on your own personal tax return, rather than filing a separate return for the business. Which leads me to the advantages of sole proprietorship. It's super convenient. There's very little paperwork, if any, that you have to file to get started. Of course, you should check your local business office for specific requirements, as they do vary from state to state, particularly as they relate to collecting sales tax. As I mentioned before, income tax filing is a lot simpler as a sole proprietor than if your business entity is separate from you as an individual. Or at least you'll only need to file one tax return rather than one for you, plus one for the business. And as a sole proprietor, you have complete control over the business, unlike other entity structures where you may have governance requirements, such as having a board of directors or shareholders to worry about. But there are some significant disadvantages of sole proprietorship as well. You can't really go into business with another person as a sole proprietor. To do that, you'll need to look into another business structure, such as a partnership, a corporation, or an LLC. And as a sole proprietor, you are personally responsible for everything the business does. So if, say, the business racks up some serious debt or gets into legal trouble, that debt or that legal trouble is yours. Your personal assets, including your house, your rainy day funds, are potentially at risk, even if you didn't have anything to do with the mistake. In other words, when you're a sole proprietor, if someone else, such as your employee, does something outrageous while working for your business, you can be held responsible. And you'll have fewer fundraising options, because while you can sell shares of a business, you can't really sell shares of yourself in order to raise capital for a sole proprietorship. If the following statements sound like you, then sole proprietorship might be a good fit. You want to get started right away. You value things like convenience and simplicity when it comes to filing taxes. You're not planning to partner closely with anyone else in business other than perhaps hiring employees. And you're not really worried about being personally liable for any business debt or legal action. But sole proprietorship is probably not the best fit for you if you have personal assets that you'd like to protect from the business's activities, or if you want to try and take advantage of better tax rates like certain company tax rates, or if you want to go into business with one or more partners, or if you intend to sell stock in order to raise money for the business. In any of these cases, you'll probably want to consider one of the other business entity types. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out our other small business guides.
Have you ever wondered what a partnership is and what makes a partnership different than a sole proprietorship? What are some of the advantages and disadvantages to a partnership and the different types? Well, in this video, we're going to answer all of those questions. So come with me, Mr. Sin, as we figure out what a partnership is. Now, while watching this video, make sure to use the guided notes. You can find them in the description below. I've created the guided notes to go along with the video so it'll help you take notes and understand all the important concepts. Then when you need to study for your test or quiz, you can just review back to your notes and you don't have to worry about rewatching the video. I also have a video on a sole proprietorship and a corporation, so make sure to look at those so you understand all the different types of business. A partnership is a business that is owned jointly by at least two people. You can have more than two, but you have to have at least two. Now, there's two different types of partnerships that we're going to go over in this course. One is just a general partnership, where everyone who's involved in the business has a say. They all have a financial stake in it and play an active role in managing or operating the business. The other one is a limited partnership. This is where at least one partner, and again it can be more than one, is silent. And what I mean by this is they're a silent partner. They are financially funding the business, but they do not play an active role. And in fact, they have no say in the day-to-day operations. So they decide to become a silent partner, where they're again giving money, but they don't get any say in what's going on with the company. So there's different things that could happen with it, and that brings up new advantages and disadvantages to a silent and limited partnership. And we'll get into those later on in the video. Now, a lot of times when a partnership is being started, it's pretty easy to start. There isn't a lot of legal things you have to go through. Probably the most common is going to be drafting articles of the partnership. And all that states is just how are profits going to be shared, who's going to do what in the business. And not every partnership will go through this process. Some will decide not to. But it's recommended that you do so that way you have a good foundation. And in case there is any disagreements between the partners, you have something to go back to explain, hey, this is what our roles are, or this is how we're splitting the money, or even the cost. So not every partnership will draft these articles, however, some will. And it is advised that you do that. Now, some of the advantages for a partnership are actually pretty similar to a sole proprietorship. And those are that it's really easy to start a partnership. There isn't, again, a lot of legal work that goes into it. You might have the articles of partnership that you want to create, but for the most part, that's about it. You also don't have to worry about special taxes. Now, partners are going to take income from the business and they would pay income tax on that. And you do have to tell the IRS, you would send them a schedule of your pay of what you would be making from it, but that's about it. There isn't a separate business tax that you have to worry about. Other things too as advantages are that you have a lot of expertise. By having multiple partners, you have people hopefully that are specializing in different things. So you can have more talent. And it's also easier to attract more people to your company or your business because now you have a variety of people on board and it's easier to scale up. Banks are also more likely to give you a loan or give you money because then when they're doing this, they know that there's multiple people that can pay it back. And if a bank did not want to give you a loan because they were afraid you wouldn't be able to pay it back, you could always take on another partner. Whether it be a limited partner and where you'd have someone who's just there to support you financially, or someone who would maybe bring new skill sets along with their financial capital to be able to support and grow your business. So as we just saw, there's a bunch of advantages to a partnership, but there's also disadvantages. Some of the disadvantages are that you still have unlimited liability. This is a concept we talked about in a sole proprietorship video. If you need information on that, check out that video. But unlimited liability here means that now, as a partner, you're responsible for everything that happens. And anything your partner does, you are responsible for. If the company takes on a massive amount of debt, well, then you have to divide that between all the partners. So unlimited liability is the same concept here. It's just a little more complicated because you have multiple people now participating in the business. Now, at the same time, though, if you are a limited partner or a silent partner, you're only responsible for what you've put into the business. So you have some protection there. That's an advantage. Now, a disadvantage would be if the company really scales up, you're limited by whatever your agreement was. And so you might miss out on some opportunities there. So sometimes people will go into a business if they're not sure about it being a silent partner and they want to take that risk. They think it'll go off, but they don't know for sure. And so there's some protection there. Another disadvantage is that the company or your business is going to die after whatever partners leave. As the old partners move on, it's not a legal entity, and so the company would die. Now, new partners can come on and try to work out a new deal with the old partners to keep the name or to keep the business going, and that would be up to them. And another huge disadvantage is conflicts within partners. Now, while when you start a business, I'm sure all of you, if you have or if you plan on it, will be in love with all of your partners and it'll be a great time and you're all going to make millions of dollars. And that is the honeymoon stage. And eventually, though, when times get tough or decisions have to be made, conflicts can easily arise. And when conflicts arise, if there's not systems in place, a partnership can crack because of disconnect within the management. So that's another big disadvantage, is by having multiple people now with a say, there can be conflicts of what should happen, which could lead to stagnation occurring or just the business falling apart. Hopefully right now you have a good understanding of what a partnership is, what are the two different types of partnerships, advantages and disadvantages to a partnership, and also how it's similar and different to a sole proprietorship.
All right, so again, just to reinforce the ideas that we found in the slides that I showed you, these videos are also talking about the characteristics of a sole proprietorship. Again, just to reinforce that idea, it's one owner, one person takes the decision, and one person shares in the profit or loss of the business. Okay? So there is also some disadvantages of a sole proprietorship. What happens in a sole proprietorship is that the owner, if the business loses money, then the owner will have to suffer the loss himself. The business is not a legal entity, so the owner may have to pay. And sometimes what happens is that if the owner owns a house, they can attach the house to pay off the debt of the business. So that is a major disadvantage of a sole proprietorship business. Okay, so we're now going to look at the slide on the partnership, right? Once more, for partnership, we looked at all the characteristics of the partnership. Right, so the main difference between the sole proprietorship and a partnership or a type of ownership is that a sole proprietorship is one person only. Partnership, there are two or more people. And again, in a partnership, there's sharing. There's sharing of profits, the sharing of liability, and the sharing of decision making as well. Now, the major disadvantage of a partnership agreement is that when one has to take a decision, it would take a little bit more time because people have to get together to make a decision. Whereas in a sole proprietorship type of business, one person takes a decision, it's taken quickly, and it's implemented quickly. Whereas in a partnership agreement, it takes a bit of time. Okay, so I think from the charts that I showed you and from the slides, you have a pretty good idea of the two types of business ownership: sole proprietorship and partnership. Now, what I'm going to do is we are now going to work in groups, and you are going to tell me the characteristics and the differences between a sole proprietorship and a partnership. So this is what we are going to do. We have 40 in our class, so we are going to have 10 groups of 4 each. Now I'm going to be issuing you with a piece of chart paper, and I'm also going to be giving you some business magazines, right? So what I want you to do is, in your groups, you will cut out pictures from these business magazines and identify, as you're cutting out those pictures, I want you to identify which businesses are one owner or sole proprietorship and which businesses are owned together in a partnership. Okay, is that clear to everyone? All right, so I'm going to give you about 8 minutes or so to create your little chart. So each group will have 2 pieces of chart paper. On one piece of chart paper, you will title it Sole Proprietor, and on the other, you will title it Partnership. All you need to do is cut out from the magazines businesses where you have one owner or sole proprietorship and businesses where they have partners. And I want you to write 3 facts on each type of business ownership. All right, there'll be 8 minutes for this activity. So as you're doing the activity, I will come around and look at what you are doing. All right, so I have here some of the efforts from your group. So I've taken group 1. So let's look at group 1. Right, so group 1 has made a chart on sole proprietors. So they've cut out these businesses where they have one owner. And here's an example: Legends Barbershop. The other one is Lisa's Florists and Richard's Shoe Repair. These businesses are owned by one person. Very good, group 1, good effort. And the important facts about a sole proprietor: the owner manages the business, right? No one else manages the business. That's the owner. The owner keeps all the profit. The owner provides all the capital for the business. Excellent work, group 1. Now, in a partnership, here we have the businesses that have partners in them. Bushler Waste Management. I think these are 3 brothers. Then you have Express and Star Winemakers. It's a group of people that have got together to make wine. And then you have a firm of attorneys called Adams and Adams. So these are examples of partnership businesses. Then the facts about them is 2 or more owners. They have 2 or more owners, up to 20 partners. The profits and loss are shared among the partners, and the partners provide the capital according to the agreement. As I said to you, according to the agreement means that they may be partners where they have equal shares, or maybe they have partners where they have unequal shares. Okay, so good work, group 1. So what we're going to now do is, I want you to think, each one of you individually now, to think about a kind of business that you would like to do. This is going to be your homework, and I want you to go home and think about what business would you like to start and what kind of ownership you would like to have for your business. Would you like to run it yourself, or would you like to run it in a partnership? All right, I hope every one of you have enjoyed the lesson. Thank you very much.